It's a sad day here at Spa because this is the first occasion since 1950, when the World Championship Series began, that the dominant personality of Enzo Ferrari has not been towering over the scene. The great man died at his hometown of Maranello just 2 weeks ago, and he will never be replaced. The old man of Formula One, he was 92, started racing over 50 years ago as the Scuderia Ferrari, using Alfa Romeo cars. An engineer first and foremost, he built from scratch the prestige name that means sporting motoring par excellence. In his life, his Ferrari team competed in 434 Grand Prix, winning 93, with 8 Constructors' Championships and 9 Drivers' titles, plus countless prestige sports car wins, like Le Mans, the Mia Emilia and the Targa Florio. Many of the greats drove for Ferrari: Nuvolari, Ascari, Fangio, Hawthorne, Scheckter, Villeneuve and Lauda. And it's always been every top driver's ambition to race the Scarlet cars from Maranello. Enzo Ferrari may have gone, but his spirit truly lives on, with the determination of his team to regain their days of glory. And the new Ferrari era starts here today at the magnificent and demanding Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the Belgian Grand Prix, a real driver's track where the weather is notoriously unpredictable. And today's race is going to be a critical one in the World Championship. The two dominant McLaren drivers, Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, share the lead with 66 points each. But Senna has 6 wins to Prost's 4, so Alain must win today to stay in the hunt. But the Constructors' Championship isn't a contest anymore. McLaren are effectively unbeatable, with 6 races still to run, and their target is to beat their own points record. The big surprise here in Belgium was this: Martin Brundle's name on Nigel Mansell's Williams. Poor Nigel has a secondary virus infection after his chickenpox, and his misfortune means a very welcome return to Grand Prix racing for Jaguar sports car ace Martin Brundle, who got his call-up in an odd place.
I was driving along the M11 the other night, Wednesday night, having just been to a Jaguar Sport launch, and the phone rang, and there's Frank on the other end of the line.
So having a car phone really is worth it.
Yes, that's right, yes. Pleased I got that.
Now, everybody wants to see you back in Grand Prix racing permanently and not just on a one-off basis, including you, I'm sure. What are the chances?
I'm certainly talking to a few teams, but I have to say I've enjoyed this year so much with Jaguar. My self-respect, my personal confidence, and just everything about being a racing driver that I enjoy has come back, and I'm not going to leave a team as good as Tom Walkinshaw's to drive and prop up the grid and give you somebody to compare Senna against. I'm not interested in that. If I can get a top drive, or at least a team I can see going in the right direction, then I'll stay with Tom Walkinshaw.
Well, celebrations are in the air this year. At Monaco, we had the 10th anniversary of our Grand Prix program, and here in Belgium, it will be the 100th time that the Benetton team, which started life as Toleman, will have started in a Grand Prix. And incidentally, it'll be the 300th time in which a Ford Grand Prix engine has started. Now, here, we've got Sandro Nannini from the Benetton team, the driver. We've got Thierry Boutsen. We've got Peter Collins, the team manager. But I'm going to ask Rory Byrne to cut the cake. Rory? In pole position for the 9th time in 11 races, it's Ayrton Senna in his McLaren Honda. And if he wins today, he's virtually clinched the Drivers' Championship. Second on the grid, double world champion Alain Prost, who's won here 3 times, but who unashamedly detests the wet weather that so often affects the Spa circuit. Gerhard Berger's third on the grid again, but as ever, he's philosophically accepting that his Ferrari is inferior to the McLaren's. Starting fourth in the second Ferrari, it's Italy's Michele Alboreto. First in 1984, but he'll be struggling today.
Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles, Messieurs, bonjour. Ici le circuit de Spa-Francorchamps où dans 5 minutes sera donné le départ de la 11e manche du championnat du monde des conducteurs de Formule 1, le Grand Prix de Belgique avec, vous les discernez en première ligne, les deux McLaren Honda de Ayrton Senna et Alain Prost, et puis une situation au championnat du monde des constructeurs qui est d'ores et déjà définitive. Ce championnat du monde des constructeurs est remporté par McLaren Honda pour l'année 88, avec peut-être un record à la clé. Le record est détenu par McLaren avec 143 points et demi. Ils en sont à 132 points alors qu'il reste 6 grands prix à disputer. Mais je ne saurais attendre plus longtemps avant de vous présenter mon invité qui est à ma droite, Jean Tinguely, connu plus par ses sculptures et son sens artistique et son talent artistique que par cette passion de la Formule 1 qui vous habite, Jean. C'est la raison pour laquelle vous êtes à mes côtés. Bienvenue dans cette cabine de commentateur. C'est un peu nouveau pour vous.
Ah oui, c'est la première fois que je suis vraiment coincé dans ma vie. Et grâce à Jacques Deschenaux, on est dans une petite cabine avec une visibilité quasi nulle. On voit rien. Je voulais installer des rétroviseurs doubles dans le sens pour qu'on puisse au moins voir arriver les voitures. Alors sachez, chers téléspectateurs, que vous êtes privilégiés. Vous êtes à la maison, vous voyez tout. Nous, on a un tout petit écran, on a une visibilité zéro. Mais je me réjouis quand même et j'ai pu profiter de l'ambiance extraordinaire d'avant la course. J'ai pu voir les écuries, j'ai pu voir, je me suis fait expliquer des choses par des mécaniciens, des ingénieurs, j'ai vu les essais. Mais là, à présent, le plaisir pour moi est terminé.
Et Jean, le travail commence effectivement, et même si les conditions sont parfois un peu précaires comme ici, on ne va pas s'en plaindre parce que l'image est celle que nous allons commenter, celle que reçoivent les téléspectateurs, avec ici René Arnoux au volant de la Ligier. René Arnoux qui part assez loin sur la grille de départ en 9e ligne avec un 17e temps. Cette grille de départ a défilé tout à l'heure sous vos yeux avec les deux McLaren Honda de Senna et Prost, puis les deux Ferrari de Berger et Alboreto, puis la Williams Judd de Riccardo Patrese, les deux Benetton Ford de Boutsen et Nannini, puis Nakajima, Piquet, Warwick, Cheever, et puis avec le 12e temps, Martin Brundle, un revenant qui remplace Nigel Mansell qui est malade. Il a même été hospitalisé, Nigel Mansell. Il est malade.
Well, first of all, best wishes from everybody here at Spa to Nigel Mansell for a rapid recovery. I'm sure he's watching this race with real interest, and he will be seeing, as you are seeing, the front row of the grid there. On the right-hand side of the grid, it's on the left as you look at it, is Ayrton Senna, and on the right, Alain Prost. And really, this race, as ever, has to be the story of these two drivers. Alain Prost must win this Belgian Grand Prix if he is to keep his World Championship hopes alive. Ayrton Senna on the left of your picture has won 6 Grand Prix this year to Alain Prost's 4, and although they have the same number of points, obviously, effectively, Senna is leading the championship since it is the best 11 results out of the 16 races that count. But the good news, the very good news from Belgium, is that after a pretty dreary couple of practice days in the Ardennes, which are absolutely notoriously unpredictable as far as weather is concerned, and over the last 2 days it's been the usual heavy mist and rain. Yesterday's time session of practice meant absolutely nothing because the course was absolutely awash in parts. But today the skies are clear and blue. There is some rain forecast for later this evening, but hopefully none of it is going to hit the Belgian Grand Prix, and that'll be good news. They are all on slick tyres. There are undoubtedly going to be tyre changes during this race. This is a natural road circuit. It is on public roads. It is a joy to be at this magnificent circuit, which is some 4.3 miles, 6.9 kilometres long. The lap record is held by Prost, who is second on the grid and who was also second fastest in the half-hour warm-up this morning. Senna there was fastest. Martin Brundle, incidentally, was 12th, as he is on the grid, a little unhappy with the balance of his Williams, and he's taken to single-seater racing again after being in the Jaguar team all season in heavy sports cars. like a duck to water. But hopefully he's got the car balanced for this 43-lap race which is about to begin. Now, Alessandro Nannini is very much a man to watch. The Italian, who has confirmed that he's going to be racing for the Benetton team in 89 and in 90, starts 7th on the grid, but was the fastest normally aspirated car in the half-hour warm-up session this morning, took a fine 4th fastest. Michele Alboreto was 3rd fastest. The Ferraris have been performing somewhat better here. They've got a revised engine which revs up to 11,500 RPM and gives them better fuel consumption, though whether it will be good enough to cope with the Honda power and fuel consumption of the McLarens remains to be seen. So, a magnificent circuit and a driver's circuit.
Yes, very much so, as they go away round La Source hairpin, down the hill to the flat out Eau Rouge, left, right, left. And then they climb up the hill, and there we have a magnificent view of the forests. Unfortunately, it's dry today. Notoriously unpredictable weather here. All these thick forests create a lot of humidity. Here we go, the two McLarens. The usual sight leading the field, 2 Ferraris behind them. But in the warm-up this morning, the Ferraris were split by a Benetton, and certainly despite their revised engine, which has concentrated much more on torque than on out-and-out power, and well, on a bigger range of usable power, and also for fuel consumption. The engine was very good in qualifying, but in this morning's warm-up, when they had to come back on their fuel consumption for today's race, I think they were a little bit disappointed. Very long lap going down the hill now. This is the longest laps in Grand Prix racing that remains. And a word for Martin Brundle, who did a magnificent job yesterday in the Williams in the wet qualifying session. He was quickest of all in qualifying yesterday. His second day out in the Williams. He had a bit of trouble on Friday physically because his neck muscles collapsed. It's the best part of a year since he's driven a Formula One car, and the sports cars, the Jaguar sports cars he's been driving, doesn't create nearly as much G-force in the corners, and he had to stop 20 minutes before the end of qualifying on the first day on Friday when it was dry, so he didn't qualify that well on the grid, but he certainly showed a lot of ability yesterday and did himself a lot of good.
Now, let us establish good and early that this race in some ways can be won or lost at the very first corner. There is a very short dash up to the first gear, very acute right-hander at La Source, and those of you who know the Belgian Grand Prix circuit may well be interested to know that the famous old restaurant on the corner has been knocked down and replaced by a fine building in the traditional Belgian stone architecture. They're leading into the bus stop now, and that leads in turn up towards the pits and the approach to La Source. Now, as I said, there's a very short approach to La Source. They have to go down into first gear. They take it at about 50 miles an hour, and we have seen many, many times a coming together of cars and the loss of chances of drivers as a result of it. There is Martin Brundle, number 5, in Nigel Mansell's red 5. Martin distinctively sitting low down in the car compared with Nigel, and quite easy to confuse with Riccardo Patrese, who wears a similar white helmet. So remember that Patrese has a white 6 and Brundle has a red 5. On the left of the picture, Ayrton Senna in pole position. On the right is Alain Prost. Behind Senna is Berger in the Ferrari. Behind Prost is Alboreto. Then behind Berger is Patrese, and behind Alboreto is Boutsen. So, all set now, 43 laps. Grueling race. And watch for La Source. Senna gets away well. Nannini is coming up, but it is Prost leading into the first corner. Then it's Senna, then it is Alboreto, followed by Berger, followed by Nannini, followed by Riccardo Patrese. And down the hill they go. There are the two Ferraris. The two McLarens have already got a gap. It's Prost leading, starting as he means to go on, up the long drag now to Le Redaillon, into Kemmel and the right-hander at Les Combes. It is Benetton in 5th position. Prost looks across his shoulder and sees Ayrton Senna on the inside, taking the lead. So Ayrton Senna leads about a third of the way round the first lap. Alain Prost tucked up behind him. Then it's Berger in 3rd position. Alboreto 4th in the 2nd Ferrari, coming towards us now. The Ferrari performance in practice was much closer than it has been in the past, but as James has said, fuel consumption may well tell later on in the race. But Berger certainly looks as though he's going for it. You can see that the circuit is absolutely dry as they come round the fast left-hander there. That is Les Fagnes down to Rome corner, which is a 3rd gear at about 120 miles an hour. Senna leading. Now the replay of the start.
Yes, tremendous start by Prost. He got the drop on Senna there, and he really needed a good start, but of course it's all gone to waste now. The fact that Senna got the toe off him up the long straight out of Eau Rouge and managed to get past him, but because this is a race that Prost must win if he's to stand a chance to win the World Championship. Senna has very much got the edge. He's got 2 more wins than Prost under his belt at the moment, and there's no way Prost can lose this race to Senna and expect to stand a chance in the championship.
The two Ferraris, 3rd and 4th, Berger and Alboreto. Senna is really making a break for it on the first lap. Nannini is in 5th position. There he is in the Benetton, the leading normally aspirated engine car. 1 lap completed, 42 to go. There's Berger in 4th position. Then Nakajima well up, that's Patrese. Eddie Cheever, there's Martin Brundle taking Ivan Capelli, and Senna leads on lap 2 into Eau Rouge. This is about a 160 mile an hour section. Prost has now got Berger in his wheel tracks, and it looks to me as though Berger is sizing Prost up to break through and try and take 2nd position as they approach the right-hander at Les Combes. And he's doing it, but Prost hangs on. Gets the apex first, holds his 2nd position. Berger is still 3rd, lap 2. And now Nannini in the 3.5-litre Ford-engined Benetton is right on the tail of the Ferrari immediately in front of him.
Yes, Berger certainly charging at the moment. I just wonder, though, whether he's got his boost setting at the setting that he'll need for the whole race, or whether he's giving it a bit of extra in the opening laps, but he's certainly charging. And Nakajima, who's up in 6th place, is having a tremendous race meeting. He out-qualified Piquet on Friday, and yesterday in the wet he was 2nd quickest, so that was a really tremendous performance by Nakajima.
As you watch Alain Prost in 2nd position now, 1.8 seconds behind his teammate Ayrton Senna. And we don't know whether Prost, as ever, is driving a tactical race, but he mustn't let Ayrton Senna get too far away. If he does, Senna will be able to back off on the boost, save his fuel, and preserve his lead. Berger then in 3rd position, very low ride height, as you can see, with sparks striking from the ground. Then Alboreto in 4th position, and it is still Nannini in 5th. Over the line they go. Senna, Prost, Boutsen, Berger, Alboreto, Boutsen, Nakajima, Nannini, Derek Warwick up, Patrese, And so, at the end of the second lap, with 41 still to go, as you watch Alain Prost in second position, he is 2.2 seconds behind Senna. Berger is third, Alboreto is fourth. Boutsen, the Belgian driver in Belgium, is in fifth position. Nakajima is sixth, Nannini is seventh, Derek Warwick is eighth, Patrese is ninth, Piquet is 10th. Martin Brundle is in 12th position.
And Berger continuing to harry Prost. I get the feeling that Prost has probably gone straight on to what I call his race setting of boost on the turbo.
René Arnoux off, and he won't recover because he is into one of the new gravel traps. So out of the race on this, the third lap, goes René Arnoux. A very short race in the Ligier, which is a pity because he qualified comparatively well in about 16th position, just ahead of his teammate, Stefan Johansson. And there is Alain Prost. Now, Prost is such an experienced driver, such a canny tactician, that I find it very hard to believe that he does not know exactly what the situation is and is not comparatively content with it. That is De Cesaris. Andrea De Cesaris then out from the race in the Real, or rather out of the Real, and he was 18th with René Arnoux, who was 19th. So there is the story, the obvious story, that there's been a coming together between the Real on the left and the Ligier on the right of Andrea De Cesaris and René Arnoux. Senna with Prost in second place, Berger there in third position, and Nannini, look at Alessandro Nannini, Boutsen in fourth position. Thierry Boutsen really going for it in his home country, and in fifth position is Nakajima. So Thierry Boutsen, and into the pits, Berger, lap four, Berger into the pits, and this is obviously an unscheduled. He's shaking his head sadly. He realises his race is effectively over. The man who started third on the grid and is in third position in the World Championship is not going to score any points in this race unless something very dramatic indeed happens. So now on the fourth lap, Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost by 2.5 seconds, with Michele Alboreto in third place. Boutsen is fourth. Nakajima, a magnificent race, in fifth position, ahead of Nannini sixth. You can see Berger out of the race. Warwick is in seventh place. Piquet is in eighth place. Martin Brundle is in 11th position. And there is the Benetton, the 3.5-litre V8 Ford-powered Benetton of Thierry Boutsen, whose wife, Patricia, has just covered the Boutsen family in glory by finishing a magnificent second in the Alfa Romeo Touring Car Celebrity race here. And we have a look at Gerhard Berger's V6 turbocharged Ferrari engine and the fumbling hands of the mechanics. It's very hot, of course, hence the gloves. And there's a plug coming out there. I haven't the remotest idea what the problem is.
Whatever it is, it would appear to be terminal.
Whereas Boutsen there is really pressing on. It's still Senna. He's continuing to increase his lead over Prost. But Boutsen is starting to catch Alboreto. He's only 1.6 seconds behind. There is Nakajima, followed by Nannini. There is Derek Warwick. That is Nelson Piquet, Eddie Cheever, Martin Brundle there, then Capelli. Now coming towards us, the Lola, that is Alex Caffey. There is Gugelmin, and that is Philippe Streff, the Frenchman in the AGS, who've had the sad blow of losing Christian van der Plein, their talented designer, to the Coloni team for next year. Senna, lap 5. And Ayrton Senna has put up the fastest lap so far, obviously with the way he broke away, 2 minutes 2.575, and that is well outside Alain Prost's lap record. As we continue to try to sort out what the position with the Ferrari is, the eyes of Gerhard Berger, the unhappy eyes, and Johan Vildelprat is the Ferrari chief mechanic on the right, as Ayrton Senna. A very different Belgian Grand Prix for Ayrton Senna than was last year's, because if you remember, Senna and Nigel Mansell had a very controversial coming together here. Senna in the Lotus Honda and Nigel Mansell in the Williams Honda, as a result of which Senna immediately retired and Nigel Mansell subsequently had to retire. But now Senna, who has already won 6 races this year as the doors go down on Ferrari, is on his way, if he stays where he is, to a 7th win. And unless Alain Prost has got a lot in reserve, and it doesn't look like it, looks as though the race pattern is set. Ayrton Senna coming through to complete his 5th lap in this 43-lap race. Alain Prost there with Alboreto through, Boutsen through, first 4. Nakajima holding his 5th place and still keeping ahead of Nannini, followed by Piquet.
And Alboreto still holding on very well to Prost. And Martin Brundle. Martin Brundle moves up into 10th place. Sorry, 11th. He's in 11th place.
Race order, lap 6. Ayrton Senna, 3.3 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, and the fastest lap of the race so far to Senna. Michele Alboreto fighting for 3rd position with Thierry Boutsen, followed magnificently by Satoru Nakajima, the Japanese driver who has had a bit of a cloud over him this year. You can see there he is. He's the 3rd of the 3 cars you are looking at. And in 6th position, Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton. 7th, world champion Nelson Piquet. 8th is Eddie Cheever, just ahead of his teammate Derek Warwick in the Arrows Megatron. In 10th place, Patrese, who similarly is just ahead of his teammate, the new one, Martin Brundle. 12th is Capelli. 13th is Alio. 14th is Gugelmin, which is well down in comparison with his practice performance, because Mauricio Gugelmin was 2nd fastest at one point in practice, going extremely well. He's in 14th place. Alex Caffey in the Dallara is 15th. Then it is Streff, Johansson, Tarquini, and Jonathan Palmer is in 19th place. As you look at the Lotus and the Benetton, Nakajima and Nannini, 5th and 6th. Piquet there in the background, 7th place. The 2 Lotus Hondas sandwiching Nannini's 3.5-litre Benetton. Now in the background, you saw the 2 Arrows go through. And here are the Lotus cars. This is the completion of the 6th lap, into lap 7. Out of the right-hander at La Source, up through 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th gears, building up to about 180 miles an hour as they go into the daunting Eau Rouge section, then climb uphill over the brow. There they go, Nakajima, Nannini and Piquet.
And Senna is beginning to look very dominant up front. He seems to be able to go quicker each lap. I'm sure he's got his boost set for consumption he wants for the whole race, so he's not cheating by using extra power, as it were. And there Berger finally out of the pits again, but of course with no chance in the race. He's been in the pits for 3 or 4 laps. So I would imagine this is just a testing exercise to see what was wrong with the car and see if they've fixed it. But Senna seems to be very much in command, pulling away from Prost. He's now over 4 seconds in the lead. And
has gone faster than his previous fastest lap. Senna now has the fastest lap in 2 minutes 1.96, compared with Alain Prost's lap record, 1 minute 57.1. If that seems an enormous margin to you, I remind you that last year the turbocharged cars had 4-bar boost. This year they have 2.5-bar boost. Last year they had 195 litres of fuel. This year they have 150. And still, Nakajima, who unashamedly dislikes street circuits like Monaco and Detroit, and we've had plenty of visual evidence of how much he dislikes them, but likes fast circuits, is doing extremely well, holding his 5th place behind Thierry Boutsen and ahead here of Alessandro Nannini as he completes his 7th lap.
And Nannini's got a problem there because he's going to find it very, very difficult to pass Nakajima because that little bit of extra power that the Honda engine runs means that Nakajima will go away from him on the straight, and there you see Senna still pulling away, setting fastest lap after fastest lap as his fuel load comes down, 4.4 seconds ahead of Prost. Alboreto holding on well in 3rd place. And Boutsen just dropping back a little bit, but well clear of Nakajima, Nannini and Piquet.
We were looking down at the helicopter there at them travelling at nearly 200 miles an hour as they climbed up Le Radaillon into Kemmel and Les Combes, which is where Senna is going through now. There really is very little left to say about this incredible young Brazilian. He is 28 years old, and in practice, by achieving his 25th pole position, he became the man to have started from pole position with that number, the 3rd highest. Only 2 people have started from pole position more often than Senna, the great Jim Clark and the great Juan Manuel Fangio. And I have little doubt that Ayrton Senna will beat both of them the way he is going these days. He is an experienced driver, a very serious driver. He is in the best car, powered by the best engine and backed up by an absolutely superlatively good team. There is the man who's having to give best to him, double world champion. I say give best to him, I mean so far. I am far from convinced that Alain Prost will not be able to pull something out of the bag, knowing how important it is that he should do so. And he's still ahead of Alboreto. Alboreto, who is definitely leaving the Ferrari team at the end of this season. Whether he is going to Williams or whether he is going, as is rumoured by some people, to a very much improved Dallara team or some other remains to be seen. But we do know that Alboreto will be leaving Ferrari at the end of the year. So this is his last Belgian Grand Prix for the great Italian team. And you see there the 2 McLarens there round the right-hander at Rivage, into the left-hander, down into the valley. Up to Le Pool, this is a 5th gear, down to 4th after it, at about 170 miles an hour, down to the left-hander here, then continuing to drop downhill, approaching the lowest part of the circuit, the right-hander, the Liège corner, which is where the new link across the valley joins the old road, because this Spa circuit has been very, very much short as a result of the weather problems that are caused in the past by the fact that one side of the circuit could be dry and the other side could be wet. And that was there is Senna joining the old part of the circuit, the old road, public road, well, as is the link road for that matter. And he's coming out to complete his 9th lap out of 73 now, leading Prost now by some 4.2 seconds, with Alboreto 3 seconds behind Prost. Boutsen 7 seconds behind Alboreto. There is Prost going past the pits, down to La Source, Ron Dennis on the right, Gordon Murray, the chief technician, on the right, and Steve Nichols, the McLaren designer, on the left in the picture there.
And Prost is actually marginally catching Senna now. The gap at its biggest was 4.4 seconds. It's now down to 3.9. And Martin Brundle being carried by the 2 marchers.
This race is going to be a real physical test for Martin Brundle. He's plunging into 43 laps around this demanding circuit in a single-seater, and as James was saying earlier on, with Capelli in his wheel tracks trying to take the Englishman, the strain on his neck muscles, unused to having to cope with the sort of G-forces they have to cope with here at Spa, is going to be considerable. So, Martin Brundle, followed by Capelli, followed by his March teammates Maurizio Gugelmin in 11th, 12th and 13th places. And on lap 10, as you look at that battle, it's Senna leading Cross by 3.8 seconds. Senna still the fastest lap so far. Boutsen in fourth position behind Alboreto, fifth Nakajima, sixth Nannini, seventh Piquet, eighth Chiva, just ahead of Warwick, 10th is Patrese, 11th Brundle, 12th Capelli, 13th Gugelmin, 14th Alio. Derek Warwick has been not at all well for the last 2 days, but is a lot better today, manifested by the fact that he gave me the fright of my life when he charged up behind me in his car when I was walking in this morning, in very good spirits, as is Martin Brundle. He says he has yet to find the limits of the Williams. He goes faster and faster, and it still stays on the track, and he's absolutely enchanted with, enthralled with the performance and the handling of the car. You can see he's reveling in it. That is Philippe Alliot. No, it's Yannick Dalmas. Yannick Dalmas in the Lola. And you can see from the haze of oil at the back that he's obviously got an engine problem. Lap 10. So Yannick Dalmas holding up his hand to indicate that and into the bus stop comes Brundle. Gugelmin ahead of Capelli. So now Maurizio Gugelmin is charging. He's up with Martin Brundle. He has taken his teammate and is in 12th place.
Going to be a very hard race physically for Martin Brundle. With the problems that he experienced on Friday, there's no way that his neck would have recovered by now. So he will have started with damaged neck muscles. He was lucky in that yesterday the track was wet, so you don't get such big G-forces. And as I said earlier, he certainly shone in those conditions. He was quickest of all in qualifying yesterday. But this dry race with the big G-forces.
Lap 11, Ayrton Senna leading the Belgian Grand Prix by 4 seconds from his teammate Alain Prost. Michele Alboreto is third, 5 seconds back. Boutsen in the Benetton is fourth. Nakajima fifth. Piquet has moved up into sixth place ahead of Nannini, who is seventh. Then a battle for eighth between Chiva and Warwick in the Arrows. 10th Patrese, 11th Brundle, 12th is Gugelmin, and we've still got 32 laps to go.
And the two McLarens, with the gap pretty much stuck at 4 seconds, steadily dropping Alboreto's Ferrari. Prost now 5 seconds ahead of Alboreto. Boutsen also is steadily dropping back from Alboreto. So the gaps are opening, except that the two McLarens are keeping it fairly constant. 4.2 seconds it is now.
There is the lone Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. He hasn't had the best of fortune, but it looks as though he's going to be the man who is going to be the only Ferrari finisher if he keeps going. Thierry Boutsen dropping back from Alboreto, but quite a gap now between Nakajima there in 5th position and Piquet in 6th place. So the world champion Piquet is now on his way to try and pass his Japanese teammate. Not good for Nelson Piquet, of course, 3 times a world champion, to be shown the way around the circuit, which Piquet knows well, although he's never won here. And this year was the first year that Nelson Piquet has not been on one of the 2 front rows of the starting grid. Nakajima, Piquet in 6th position, then behind Piquet, Nannini, Chiva, Warwick. Terrific scrap. We've seen so much during this season of these very evenly matched drivers in the Arrows Megatron team, Derek Warwick and Eddie Chiva, with Warwick almost invariably coming out on top, both in practice and in the race. But at the moment he is behind Eddie Chiva on lap 12, with Senna continuing to lead by just over 4 seconds, still with the fastest lap, 2 minutes 1.7 seconds, and that is Piquet.
Sa situation s'en trouverait très confortable avec 7 victoires pour le Brésilien et 4 pour Prost. Prost qui est toujours à 4 secondes 1 du leader. Mais on ira tout de même un peu à la consommation, un peu à l'usure des pneumatiques. Et la course est loin d'être finie. Elle n'est pas aussi intense qu'il y a 3 semaines en Hongrie où on avait une sorte de petit train derrière Senna.
Ah, vous pensez que la course est ennuyeuse un peu?
Non, elle n'est pas ennuyeuse, mais les écarts sont plus grands.
Oui, oui.
Et
C'est vrai que Prost attaque.
Prost va attaquer, mais je pense pas avant la mi-course.
Alors pour moi, alors lui, en Formule 1, ça n'existe pas vraiment. Moi, je pourrais voir tourner une Formule 1 tout seul. Ce que j'ai déjà écouté, on les écoute, on les voit. Par exemple, au Grand Prix d'Italie à Monza, où on entendait le changement des vitesses. On peut l'écouter tout seul, c'est merveilleux. Mais je comprends que c'est une compétition et il faudrait qu'il y ait combat.
Oui.
Et les Américains, ils font leur Grand Prix dans la Formule E en faisant un truc très intelligent. Ils arrêtent la course dès qu'il y a le moindre accident.
Just turn in as they almost reach the Armco at about 180 miles an hour. Left through Eau Rouge, clipping the edge of the course over the brow and then starting to climb, which is what they're doing now. And you can see the course up as they go into the right-hander at Rivage. This is a second gear corner and PK is definitely catching Nakajima.
And I think Martin Brundle's physical problems may be beginning to take their toll. Maurizio Gugelmin has passed him, and he was always struggling, appeared to be struggling to stay in front of the marches. So Senna still 4.3 seconds in front of Prost. They are lapping very consistently, the two McLarens. There is really nothing much to choose between them apart from that 4-second gap. And I get the feeling that Prost will be quite happy with his situation for the time being. He'll be trying to save fuel as much as he can to mount a challenge in the last 10 laps.
And while you watch the Ferrari and we wait for Boutsen to appear in the Benetton, a word for another not well man in hospital in Britain, Johnny Herbert, who was injured in the Brands Hatch Formula 3000 race last weekend. The good news I've had from Professor Sid Watkins, who is the FISA chief doctor, is that Johnny Herbert is definitely going to make a complete recovery. We're looking forward to seeing him in racing again. Indeed, it is further rumoured, to throw in another one, that Johnny was going to have signed a contract with Lotus on Tuesday. That similarly remains to be seen, because we know also that Benetton are after his services. But get well soon, Johnny Herbert, as we look at Michele Alboreto, third position on his own. He is a long way now behind Alain Prost. It's the usual story of the two seemingly invincible McLarens who have had so many first and second places this season and have won every race. Out in front with a Ferrari in third position as long as it lasts. Berger effectively out of the race already. Will Alboreto last? Into the pits, Nicola Larini in the Osella, and he gestures to the back of the car. Are we going to see the seatbelts come up? Well, the visors come up. Now, the engineer Tomeni, the man in the blue shirt, has just clipped into Larini's helmet. The electrical connection enables him to speak to him through the microphone and earphones. They're changing tyres as a precaution. Doesn't mean to say the tyres are worn out. They'll do that anyway. The car is in for some time, so it's an opportunity to slap a fresh set of Goodyears on as Michele Alboreto comes out of the bus stop to complete his 14th lap with the two McLarens ahead. Now the gap between Senna and Prost is 4.88 seconds. Senna is lapping marginally quicker than Prost, 2 minutes 1.8 as you look at Boutsen going through in fourth position. He is 10 seconds behind Alboreto, who is 10 seconds behind Prost, who is just under 5 seconds behind Senna. Nakajima has now got PK right on his tail. I hope we can see it soon, because the determined Japanese ex-Formula 2 5-times champion of Japan, Satoru Nakajima, has got 3-times world champion Nelke in his rear view mirrors. That is Boutsen in 4th place. There's the right-left at Les Combes. This is the highest point of the course. From now they start to drop downhill. And Martin Brundle, as we have said, has been overtaken not only by Gugelmin now, but also by Capelli. He's down to 13th place, and back into the pits comes Gerhard Berger. He's just settling himself in the cockpit. He lifts the visor. That will be to stop it misting up. Ah, that's the sign. Off comes the steering wheel. Out comes Berger. His race is run. Gerhard Berger, who has only had to retire twice before this season, makes it 3 times. And Thierry Boutsen continues to hold not only the 4th place, but the leading place for normally aspirated engined cars with the Ford V8 powered Benetton. And Thierry Boutsen, number 20 there, has already had 3 third places in this race. He may well have another one, because if Alboreto has the problem that Berger has, Boutsen would automatically move up a place.
Race leader Ayrton Senna, who has just started to open the gap slowly, gently, between himself and teammate Alain Prost. It's now just over 5 seconds for the first time. And he's been inching away for the last 3 laps by a couple of tenths a lap.
Now then, while we're watching Senna, let's have a little debate about him and Prost, James. Prost knows that he's got to win this race if he's keeping his championship hopes alive. He's 5 seconds behind Senna. Are we in this race seeing the turn where Ayrton Senna establishes himself as undoubtedly the finest driver of the day?
Yes, I think we are. Quite honestly, Murray. Senna he started the season very well. He had a couple of hiccups, notably at Monte Carlo, but by and large, he's been on top of Prost for most of the season, and he looks very much in command today at this stage, unless Prost is doing something very cunning and saving fuel for a late charge, but quite honestly, I don't believe that he is able to afford that luxury. I think he's giving it everything he can, and Senna is still inching away from him by a couple of tenths of a second a lap, and I think this certainly underlines the fact that Senna is the #1 driver in the world at the moment.
And there he is, coming up to complete his 16th lap, and to underline what James was saying, his last lap was 2 tenths of a second faster than this man, number 11, double world champion Alain Prost, and it was the lap he just completed as well. Senna 2 minutes 1.7, Prost 2 minutes 1.9. The gap is 5.2 seconds. Alboreto is lapping at 2 minutes 2.4. That's actually his fastest lap of the day so far, but even so, it is half a second slower than Alain Prost, and over half a second slower than Ayrton Senna. Here comes Prost up to the right-hander at Les Combes. Boutsen is lapping 1.5 seconds slower than Alboreto in 4th place. Nakajima is magnificently still in 5th place. It would be nice if we could see it, because this is the battle in the race at the present moment. And he's passed, Piquet's passed. I have to make my usual statement of we can see it, but you can't, and don't blame us for it. But Nelson Piquet has got ahead of Satoru Nakajima and up into 5th place. Here he is. Ah, they must have heard me. Here's Nelson Piquet. Number 1. Number 2, takes a nice sight, the 2 yellow Lotus Hondas. Nakajima can be well pleased with himself. Nannini, of course, is giving away a lot of power. Well, he won't have any fuel consumption problems, but really, in this race, such is the diligence and the competence of the Honda engineers that we're not expecting the McLarens or the Lotus teams, both of which are Honda powered, to have any fuel consumption problems either, notwithstanding the fact that they've got about 150 litres to about 190 of the 3.5 litre Ford powered Benetton. Race order, lap 17, 43 lap race. Senna now 5.2 seconds ahead of Prost. Then Alboreto, 12 seconds behind Prost. Then Boutsen in 4th position. 5th is Piquet, and number 2 there, Satoru Nakajima, is in 6th position. In 7th place behind the Japanese driver, Nannini. Then it's Chiva, who has now built a massive lead over Derek Warwick of less than 1 second, and that is a massive lead compared with what he had in the past in this race, but I've no doubt that Warwick will fight back. 10th is Patrese, 11th is Gugelmin, 12th is Capelli, Martin Brundle is right there in 13th position, Alex Caffey is 14th, Alio is 15th, Streff is 16th, then Johansson is 17th, followed by Jonathan Palmer in 18th position. 19th and 20th, the 2 Zach Speeds of Ben Schneider and a very unhappy Piercarlo Ginzani, who was moaning to me about the Zach Speed last night, and he is not at all happy with the car. And frankly, I doubt if he will be in the Zach Speed team next year. Another rumour is that next year the Zach Speed team will be powered by Yamaha engines, accompanied by Aguri Suzuki, the Japanese driver, and Christian Danner is hotly tipped to be the German driver in the Zach Speed team in place of Stan Schneider. We'll see. Meantime, there is Piquet, 5th position, but a long, long way now behind Thierry Boutsen. Nearly 10 seconds, and that is a long way, a long time in Formula One terms. That is Thierry Boutsen, 4th position. The quiet, extremely amiable and likeable Belgian who will be driving for Williams next year in place of Nigel Mansell, who is of course going to Ferrari. And we have good news from Nigel Mansell. He has been to the world-famous Nobles Hospital in the Isle of Man, which looks after any problems that may arise from the TT motorcycle races, and have a tremendous expertise for a battery of tests. And I understand that the news is good. So whether Nigel will be at the Italian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time remains to be seen on how he recovers. These virus infections can have a very debilitating effect. Thierry Boutsen out of La Source, down to Eau Rouge, 9 seconds ahead of Piquet, 10 seconds ahead of Piquet, who's not making any impression on the 3.5 litre car. And really, if we have to say, in answer to those people who comment about the fact that McLarens win all the races, Grand Prix racing would be tremendously competitive and exciting if it wasn't for Ron Dennis's all-conquering team of McLaren Hondas.
Yes, it's been somewhat monotonous this season, and I think it's a combination of the McLaren chassis and the Honda engine. But once again, I reiterate that we look forward to next season when everybody is on atmospheric engines, and the envelope of performance between a good Atmo and a bad Atmo is considerably smaller between a good or a bad turbo. And so we do look forward to more equal power for most of the cars next year, and therefore hopefully closer racing.
Not so very far off, half distance now, 21.5 laps will be half distance, and we're now on lap 19. And thank heavens, thus far, there has been very little falling out of cars because of unreliability. Gerhard Berger is out, De Cesaris and Yannick Dalmas out, not because of any fault with the cars, but because of their coming together. So the Lola and the Real out. But we have still got 20 cars running. Indeed, more than that out of the 26 who started. We've got 23 cars running out of the 26 who started on a course which is notoriously demanding. By the way, as you watch Nelson Piquet now coming through, the green-yellow Benetton of Nannini is right up, and that is Chiva being pushed very hard by Warwick. There is Patrese, followed by Gugelmin and Capelli.
Yes, and you saw the puff of smoke then as Chiva just locked the brake momentarily on his way into La Source.
So there is Riccardo Patrese, who is in 10th position. There is Chiva in the red helmet, who is 8th. Derek Warwick right up behind him, 9th. Patrese 10th. Gugelmin in 11th place in the red and yellow helmets, and in the similar coloured March 3.5 litre car, this comparatively new team. They only came back into Grand Prix racing last year, and they made a terrific mark this year. Robin Hurd's team, Adrian Newey, the designer, Ian Phillips, the very competent and cheerful team manager, and a really friendly team who do a terrific job, and they made a real mark on Grand Prix racing this season. They are now one of the teams that you definitely have to think of as the front men.
Écoutez leur bruit. Il faut sentir leurs odeurs, il faut voir leur couleur réelle, leur détail, leur finesse. Et dans les circuits européens, par exemple, spécialement ici, on a vraiment la possibilité de voir bien les voitures. Pas comme, évidemment, Nürburgring, c'est une chose très triste, parce qu'on est trop éloigné. Nürburgring, il faut presque des lunettes. C'est comme si déjà on était à la télévision quand on est spectateur.
Ouais.
Mais ici, ou à Monaco, ou à certains grands nombres de circuits européens, on peut encore vivre à fond la Formule 1. Et c'est très important. Je crois que c'est bien, on peut mieux le voir à la télé ensuite. Il faut de temps en temps voir.
From Prost with Alboreto Boots and PK Nakajima as we take you back to Murray Walker.
Gugelmin is going to make a challenge. Did he overrun? Yes, went over the curve, and Capelli goes through.
That's an engine problem I think the Gugelmin had. I think his engine has just blown. We saw some smoke come and he was trying to get out of the way. Well, maybe he hasn't blown because he's got going again, so it can't have blown up. But certainly he seemed to be having some sort of problem with the car. In the meantime, Senna is still inching away from Alain Prost. The gap is now up to nearly 7 seconds. Here we can have a look again. Well, that may have been a locked brake, that puff of smoke from Gugelmin. He certainly made a mess of that getting over the curb. He went in a little bit deep. And I think I was entirely wrong then saying that it was an engine problem. I think it was just getting all confused in the corner of his own accord.
Yes, and Gugelmin, who is a thinking driver, may be a little worried about the fact that he clumped over the curb there, because his teammate Ivan Capelli had a suspension collapse on him in practice after he had run for some time on a punctured tyre. And Gugelmin certainly won't want that to happen to him on a fast part of the course. Now we are on lap 21, almost at half distance, and as you watch Satoru Nakajima in the Lotus in 6th place, the race order is Ayrton Senna leading Alain Prost by nearly 7 seconds. 3rd is Michele Alboreto, 4th is Boots, and 5th is Piquet, and 6th is Nakajima. But no longer does Ayrton Senna hold the fastest lap, because between going out and coming back again to retire, Gerhard Berger really got the Ferrari wound up, went round in 2 minutes, 0.77 seconds, and thus far holds the fastest lap. So it's Senna leading, Prost 2nd, Alboreto 3rd, Boutsen 4th, and Piquet 5th.
Yes, you have to remember, of course, that Berger would have been running considerably more power when he went out again, because having lost 4 or 5 laps in the pits, that was fuel saved, as it were, and therefore he was probably running the full 2.5 bar boost.
Incidentally, I've just realised while James was talking to you that I maligned poor Yannick Dalmas it was Andrea de Cesaris who had the coming together with René Arnoux, and Yannick Dalmas who went up. Now, Nannini, Satoru Nakajima has... now watch this. Here is a replay of Nannini getting past Nakajima and up into 6th place. So now, both the Benettons, there is Sandro Nannini, who's with, as I said, Benetton for the next 2 years after this season. He's taken up, or rather Benetton have taken up their option on this very talented young Italian, and he's now in the points, as is his teammate Thierry Boutsen. That is Ayrton Senna coming through to complete his 22nd lap with a commanding lead. The man, Ayrton Senna, who won at San Marino, Canada, Detroit, Britain, Germany, Hungary, finished 2nd in Mexico, and France, was disqualified in Brazil through no fault of his own and failed to finish in Monaco very definitely because of his own fault. But he's made amends since then, has learned, as he always does, from lessons, and he's now... there's the Brazilian flag as ever waving in the background. And Ayrton Senna is now building up the lead over Prost, who's coming up behind the Zach speed of Bernd Schneider to take and lap the German. Now Ghinzani has been lapped, who is just behind Alain Prost, and Schneider is about to be lapped, and they are in 19th and 20th places. Schneider waves his hand, courteously allows the Frenchman through, but of course that will have cost Alain Prost yet more time, because one of the hallmarks of Senna's driving competence, or his braveness, whichever way you like to look at it, is that he will never have any hesitation about diving past.
Yes, and there's Nakajima in the pits, and as we saw Nannini go past him, it was quite clear he was in some sort of trouble. That effectively puts him out of contention in the race. They're taking the bodywork off, so it's obviously something quite serious and internal.
And Derek Warwick has passed Eddie Cheever at last. Derek Warwick, after forcing every inch of the 22 laps that have been completed thus far, has moved up a place into 7th position, and I forecast that Derek Warwick will be in the points before the end of this race. He has already been in the points 4 times this season. There is Alain Prost into the double right of the bus stop, now out of the left, across the starting grid, over the line, the finish line, down to La Source. You can see how far back Schneider is. There's Schneider, that was Ghinzani. They have both been lapped. And that is Tarquini, Gabriel Tarquini, in the yellow Coloni, as Michele Alboreto, 18 seconds now behind Alain Prost. Although he's lapping faster than Prost at the moment, he's lapping half a second faster than Prost. You're looking at the fabled F187 Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. The new 3.5-litre V12 John Barnard designed Ferrari, with its electromagnetic operation of the gearbox, has been further tested in the last week. There is some debate, of course, these days about whether McLaren might feel tempted to bring out their V10-powered, Honda-powered car later on in the season when they have won the Constructors' Championship. Well, they virtually won it already. And in the same way, some people are wondering whether Ferrari might take a chance and introduce their V12 3.5-litre car. I imagine that both contingencies are pretty unlikely. But meantime, there in the 1.5-litre turbocharged Ferrari, Michele Alboreto carrying the famous 27. He won the Belgian Grand Prix in 1984. He's at the exact spot where he retired last year, on the drop down from Les Combes to Rivage, the long, long, long right-hander which he is on now. 2nd gear. Goes up into 3rd as out now onto the old part of the circuit, and there is a plug coming out out of the V6 turbocharged Honda engine of Satoru Nakajima. Honda have no less than 24 technicians here to look after the engines. And when you compare that with the Judd organisation, who have got John Judd and Stan Hart, another of his staff, with them to look after the Judd entries, you'll realise the massive effort that Honda are making in terms of personnel, expenditure, expertise. There is Eddie Cheever in the Arrows Megatron. And behind Eddie Cheever, you can see Patrese with Capelli in his wheel tracks, who's got ahead of Gugelmin. And Patrese, Cheever is 8th, Patrese is 9th, Capelli is in 10th position. All in 3.5 metre cars, all of them Judd powered, all V8s. And Capelli is really, he's challenging. Patrese going through on the inside. Patrese has to run wide. Capelli, well, Patrese really hung on there.
Yes, and Capelli showed himself to be a brave man to do that to Patrese, because Patrese is notoriously hard, doesn't give way easy. Here we can see it again, and Capelli gets himself in a bit of an awkward position because he's committed, and now he can't drop back. But luckily for him, Patrese gives him just enough room. I mean, the wheels were inside each other, but they got away with it. So, no place change, and Capelli lives to fight again.
As the Lotus mechanics push Satoru Nakajima's car back into the garage. So, one Honda-powered car less, 3 left on the circuit. 2 of them in the first 2 positions, the McLarens of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, and the other one in 5th place, the Lotus of Nelson Piquet. And Senna is now 7.6 seconds ahead of Prost, and seemingly Alain could do nothing about the Brazilian in front of him, who continues to lap those vital 0.2 of a second faster than the Frenchman. Gerhard Berger still holds the fastest lap time, just over 2 minutes. And we're looking now at the battle between Eddie Cheever in the Arrows, and he is in 8th position, followed by Patrese, followed by Capelli. And in 3rd place behind Prost is still Alboreto. 4th is still Boots, and 5th Piquet. 6th Nannini. Of course, now that Nakajima is out of the race, Derek Warwick just out of the points in 7th place. And then this battle, 8th, 9th, 10th between Cheever, Patrese and Capelli. Martin Brundle is in 12th position. Jonathan Palmer is 17th and has been lapped.
And Capelli's really got the bit between his teeth. He's harrying Patrese all around the circuit. And the march looks marginally quicker in a straight line to me. So we'll just wait and see as they go through Eau Rouge whether Capelli can pick up the draft from the Williams and get towed past at the end of the straight. He's not quite close enough. No. Williams certainly very efficient through the air. Capelli attacking at all the corners.
And the Belgian Grand Prix authorities, in common with many other Grand Prix authorities, have spent a lot of money improving the circuit and the facilities. New covered grandstand, excellent new press centre, a lot of new sand traps. There's one of them that you can see on the outside of the left-hander there. And we've seen that they work very well from the way that they stopped René Arnoux and Andrew de Cesaris on the 3rd lap, and Patrese staving off the march, which gives Cheever a chance to get away, but Capelli is going through. Lovely bit of driving.
Yes, tremendous stuff. Quite brave, and he put himself in a really at Patrese's mercy, but luckily Patrese did have mercy on him, and it worked. Got himself on the outside, which gave himself the inside line for the second half of the S-bend there. Now, Capelli, next target, Eddie Cheever. And this will be a very difficult one. And here we see it again. So Capelli was brave enough to take the outside line there. Both cars sliding quite a lot there, you see, as they fight them, but that gave him the inside line for the left-hand part of the S-bend, and he was able to punch through and get ahead of Patrese. But Chiva will be a more difficult problem, because remember the turbo engine Chiva's car, and that is Ginzani, stopped in his Zach speed. A sadly all too familiar sight with the Zach speeds.
And I suspect that Ginzani will not be too unhappy, judging by what he said to me yesterday about his views of the Zach speed. But Dustin Hoffman then, alias Ivan Capelli, up into 9th position. So nicknamed because he is a Dustin Hoffman look-alike and the real joker. You do not stand near Ivan Capelli if he's got any glasses of water in his hand, or nor do you stand between him and a swimming pool. But there is Ayrton Senna, and he is now on his 28th lap. As ever, the McLaren Hondas are running with complete reliability. There is Stefan Johansson, followed by Jonathan Palmer, and they are respectively in 16th and 17th places.
And Ayrton Senna continuing just an inch away from Prost, but the gap is getting to be too big for Prost really to do anything about it. Now 9.7 seconds, and as ever, it would appear that Senna has made better work of the traffic as they've come amongst the back markers, started to lap cars.
Senna, now, if anybody can do anything about McLaren's and stopping the Woking team from winning all 16 Grand Prix, it is Ferrari. They're certainly not doing it here. They had two types of engine in practice, one that revved up to 12,500 RPM, the other which revved up to 11,500 RPM, and obviously gave better fuel consumption. But they are rumoured to have something special for Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, in 2 weeks' time. And by the way, the famed Jean-Marie Balestre, who is the top man of FISA, the governing body of motorsport, has issued an ultimatum to the Monza authorities, telling them to get their act together, or there won't be an Italian Grand Prix at Monza next year. And their act is defined as getting the facilities improved and some of the corners made safer. But anyway, in a fortnight's time there is the Italian Grand Prix, and Ferrari will be wheeling out something with, let us all hope, from the point of view of those who want to see another constructor at the front, but it will be more successful than the 187s have been. Meantime, there is the arrows of Eddie Cheever, chased by Ivan Capelli's March. Cheever is in 8th position. Capelli going for Cheever as he went successfully for Patrese.
Yes.
Moins motivé, la mise au point, le développement de la Lotus s'en ressent. Avec attaque de Capelli. Il passe Cheever. Alors il se retrouve maintenant 9e, je pense, Capelli. Ou peut-être même mieux, 8e. Et il va bientôt aller chercher Warwick, mais il est à 7 secondes environ de Warwick. On revoit. Et puis sur ce circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, on dirait qu'on a vu un Suisse à l'œuvre hier, un Suisse roman, le jeune valaisan David Luyet, qui courait dans une formule de promotion et qui a terminé au 5e rang après être parti en 3e position sous la pluie. Un espoir du sport automobile helvétique que ce jeune valaisan, âgé de 21 ans à peine, et qui fait un bon début de carrière en monoplace.
Oui, c'est très beau à voir le père et le fils ensemble, engagés dans une aventure.
Oui.
venant du fin fond du Valais.
De Savièse.
Hein?
De Savièse.
De Savièse. C'est pas le fin fond.
Non, pas vraiment, mais c'est le Valais, c'est le cœur du Valais, Savièse. Ils sont vignerons en plus, alors. Il y a maintenant 12 secondes 4 entre Senna et Prost, et Patrese va essayer de surprendre Cheever, les deux anciens coéquipiers. Et ils sont très liés l'un à l'autre, Cheever et Patrese, parce qu'ils ont épousé deux sœurs.
C'est une affaire de famille.
Et c'est une affaire de famille.
Pour revenir aux motoristes japonais et aux constructeurs anglais à McLaren, il y a une chose à dire par rapport à Ferrari, qui est la suivante.
Team next year, he's got a lot of opposition because Johnny Herbert is one of the contenders. Martin Brundle, of course, must be in contention now. And Riccardo Patrese, who's finished sixth twice this year to score 2 World Championship points, Monaco and Hungary, but has failed to finish 6 times. And he's through. Riccardo Patrese moves ahead of Eddie Cheever, who was just passed previously by Ivan Capelli. Now this gives Maurizio Gugelmin, or does it, the chance to close up on the American in the turbocharged arrows. Senna leads now by nearly 11 seconds. Berger's still the fastest lap, just over 2 minutes.
Yes, and Senna just taking advantage of the traffic gap now, 12.4 seconds to Alain Prost. And I get the feeling that Eddie Cheever may just be in a little bit over his fuel allowance at this stage of the race. I think he's come back on the power a bit, because certainly Patrese was able to come up alongside him on the straight, get inside for that outbraking manoeuvre into the bus stop.
Lap 30. Riccardo Patrese now in 9th position behind Capelli, and the race order is still Senna, 12.5 seconds now ahead of Prost. I think Prost is now reluctantly settling for 2nd place. Alboreto 3rd, 34 seconds behind Prost. Boutsen is still 4th, 52 seconds behind. Then Piquet 5th, Nannini 6th, and the leading 3.5-litre car. 7th is Derek Warwick, just out of the points. And there is the Lotus of Nelson Piquet. His teammate, of course, Nakajima, out of the race. Capelli 8th, Patrese 9th, Cheever 10th, Gugelmin 11th, Martin Brundle still hanging on, but not far off being lapped, and I'm sure that his problem is the physical one of strain in this long single-seater race. He's totally unused to it, rather than a car problem. The Williams team have been working very hard on, in particular, the cooling of their engine, and they seem to have cracked that one. And both the Williams jugs are still running, and that's Gugelmin, Maurizio Gugelmin, out of the race. Well, we hypothesized that he may have an engine problem, and it looks as though that is so. Lap 31 then, Maurizio Gugelmin, after a brave and fine drive, out of the race, and that means to say that Brundle moves up a place into 11th place. Cathy now goes up into 12th position, and you're looking at Alessandro Nannini, 6th place in the points. So 2 McLarens, then a Ferrari, then a Benetton, then the Lotus, and then another Benetton.
Yes, Nannini only a couple of, well, just under 3 seconds behind Nelson Piquet, is certainly chasing hard. And Senna has now extended his lead over Prost to 15.5 seconds. And that really looks to me as if Senna is today tying up this year's World Championship.
Yes, Senna has always been utterly confident of the fact that he is a world champion. He has always felt that he has not had, up to this season, the car to enable him adequately to exploit his talent. And it's not a question of being big-headed, it is a question of being utterly confident and completely realistic about his own abilities. Last year, he felt that he was better than the Lotus, notwithstanding the fact that he won 2 races brilliantly at Monaco and Detroit. He was to some extent hampered by the extra weight that the car had to carry with the pioneering active suspension. Before that, of course, his entry to Grand Prix racing was with the Tolman team, and with no disrespect to Tolman, and that is Patrese coming to a halt. Riccardo Patrese, steering wheel out, Patrese out in a minute. This is lap 32, and Patrese joins the other retirees, René Arnoux, Andrea De Cesaris, Yannick Dalmas, Piercarlo Ghinzani, Mauricio Gugelmin, and now Riccardo Patrese.
It's interesting because both Patrese and Gugelmin were running in pretty close company just before they both stopped. They both stopped within a lap of each other, and it makes one sort of hypothesize that maybe contact was made and damage done to the cars. But of course we didn't see it. We didn't get a replay of how Gugelmin's retirement came about. Brazilian flag, there's never a shortage of Brazilian flags around Grand Prix racing. Hasn't been since 1970 or 71, whenever Emerson Fittipaldi got going. And Senna now 17 seconds in front, and it would require now a major quirk of fate for Prost to win the World Championship this year.
I'm trying to think into the mind of Alain Prost and what he would be saying after the race. I can only think, because I've listened very carefully to both cars as they went past our commentary box, which is right by the side of the circuit. They both sound crisp and clean and powerful, and I can only excuse me, I can only feel that it is just a case of Ayrton Senna being too quick for Alain Prost. It can't be that he's got a gearbox problem. I don't think he'd have a tyre problem in today's conditions. So Ayrton Senna is definitely stamping his authority on his teammate, Alain Prost. And as James said, it looks like we may well have a new world champion.
And Nannini and Piquet have just gone past us, with Nannini having closed right up on Piquet's tail. So he's now in position to challenge Nelson Piquet for 5th place.
Senna leading by 17 seconds. Prost there in 2nd position, and Alboreto still in 4th place, 21 seconds behind Prost. Boutsen in 4th place, 17 seconds behind Alboreto. Now here is the battle that James was just mentioning. Nelson Piquet in 5th position in the Lotus Honda, being chased by Alessandro Nannini, the second 3.5 litre car in the race. And the other one, of course, is his teammate Thierry Boutsen. And the Benetton team have done magnificently in 1988. Boutsen with those 3 third places. His teammate Nannini has had a 3rd place. That is Gabriel Tarquini in the Coloni in the pits. Let us hope we quickly get back to Nelson Piquet and Nannini, because I have a feeling that the Italian is going to be in front of the Brazilian very shortly. Coloni, incidentally, have recruited the designer of the very pretty and successful little AGS, Christian van der Plein, for next year. But now we are back with the battle for 5th position between Nelson Piquet in the Lotus Honda, Alessandro Nannini in the Benetton.
You've got quite a good view then of just how much power advantage the Honda engine gives Piquet, because he pulled out quite a distance on the straight, and you see then when we get to the twiddly bits how Nannini then pulls the Lotus Honda in. But it makes it a big problem for him to pass. Now with this aerial shot, you can see now the Lotus starting to stretch its legs and pull away from the Benetton. And that's going to mean it's a big problem for Nannini to get past, because he's going to have to be pretty heroic around the twisty area of the track.
180 miles an hour as they approach the right-hander at Les Combes, highest point of the circuit. Nannini there in 6th position. In the points behind him is Derek Warwick, in sight actually. I saw him as Nannini came towards the camera at Les Combes. 8th is Capelli, 9th is Cheever, 10th is Brundle, who has moved up, of course, as a result of the retirement of Riccardo Patrese and Maurizio Gugelmin. And it's here, this part of the course, that Nannini will, if he's able to, and his car is able to, close up on Nelson Piquet, because the Benetton is definitely nimbler. The Rory Byrne designed Benetton is nimbler than the Gérard Ducar-Rouge designed Lotus. And by the way, Frenchman Gérard Ducar-Rouge is on the move at the end of the season, leaving Lotus. Destination unknown. Nannini. Giving away at least 50 horsepower to the Lotus in front of him. Now they're out onto the old part of the circuit. Surface is identical, of course. But now they're coming up to the bus stop, the left and right, and then the right and left out. They go through that they approach in 4th, down to 3rd, out to 2nd gear as they burst out here, and then up through the box again, past the pits, down to La Source. And again, as Nannini gets right up onto the gearbox of the wheel-locking Nelson Piquet's Lotus, this is where, and Alboreto's in trouble. The hypothesis is coming true, has come true. Berger went out with a problem, and now it looks as though Alboreto's engine is giving way. Look at the smoke pouring out of it. Let's hope he's not laying oil in the process. I'm surprised he's not moving over. He must see a big cloud of oil in his mirrors, but he bores on. And that's it. I think the turbo, well, you know, it could be that it's just oil dropping onto an exhaust pipe or something like that. But he's determinedly pressing on.
Yes, I couldn't see any oil going onto the track from the car. I think it was just all getting burnt around the back of the car on the hot bits. But whatever he's got, he's not going to have it for much longer. It looks very terminal to me. He may be able to do a lap or so more until the engine runs out of oil, but it can't go on for long like that.
And that's going to mean, if Alboreto goes out, that Derek Warwick is going to move up into the points for the 5th time this year. But Alboreto showing no signs of slowing down. He may just decide to drive into the pits here, but it's interesting the way the smoke haze dies down and then builds up again. Is he coming into the pits? Somebody seems to think he's coming into the pits, but Alboreto doesn't, for one. La Source, and that is 35 laps completed for the Italian. Now the gap is between Alboreto and Prost is 26 seconds. The gap between Alboreto and Boutsen, and this is the one to watch, is 14 seconds. We'll keep you in touch.
Yes, and as Alboreto went past us just now, the engine sounded very rough indeed.
So there is Alboreto coming up Le Redaillon into Kemmel and Les Combes. Now there's the Ligier of Stefan Johansson going past him, and Alboreto goes out. Alboreto retires. Michele Alboreto out of the Belgian Grand Prix on lap 36. Derek Warwick moves up into 6th place and the points. Nannini moves up into 5th place. Piquet moves up into 4th place, and Thierry Boutsen is back in his familiar 3rd position. There is the Belgian, Thierry Boutsen, number 20, who has already finished 3rd in Canada, Detroit and Hungary, 4th at San Marino, 6th in Germany. He is 4th equal in the World Championship at the present moment. Some 12 points behind Gerhard Berger, who has, of course, retired. And Boutsen will get 4 points if he stays where he is now, as a despondent Michele Alboreto with despair written on every line of his body. If body language spoke, that's it. He is absolutely fed up.
après une belle course où il occupait solidement sa troisième place avec près de 20 secondes d'avance, 15 secondes d'avance sur Boutsen. C'est la loi de la course. L'écart entre Senna et Prost dépasse les 20 secondes maintenant, 21 secondes à 7 tours de l'arrivée. Et Thierry Boutsen ici. Alors un Senna, un tiercé, Senna, Prost, Boutsen, ce ne serait pas du nouveau. Ça s'est vu au Canada, ça s'est vu à Détroit et ça s'est vu en Hongrie.
Pour revenir à la Ferrari, l'intérieur de la Ferrari a repris tous les éléments de construction de la F1 comme éléments décoratifs. C'était pas de cacher ça, c'était pas de couvrir par du cuir. Ils ont laissé apparent le côté carbone. C'est très très beau. Mais là, je voulais encore...
Welcome back now as we go to the closing stages with Senna Prost. A surprise for Boutsen, a great drive from him. PK also a surprise in fourth. Nannini, Capelli, they make up the major spots. We go back to Murray Walker.
3.5 litre runners.
And behind Boutsen, his teammate Alessandro Nannini is still trying to find a way around Nelson Piquet. But that is really a problem with the power of the Honda engine. That extra 50 to 100 horsepower that Piquet is having means that he just pulls away on every straight, and that means that Nannini is too far behind when they arrive in the braking area each time to go for an out-braking maneuver. The other problem he has, the most likely place that he could probably pass him would be at La Source hairpin, and quite frankly, if he does that, then Piquet will just walk past him on the straight once they get through Eau Rouge and up to Les Combes. So he's got a real problem, Nannini.
You may have noticed on the caption there that Derek Warwick was not shown as being in sixth place. The reason being that he is not in sixth place any longer. He was fleetingly when I told you, but since then Ivan Capelli in the March has moved up into sixth place, the one World Championship points position, and on lap 38, Ayrton Senna now is 21 seconds ahead of Alain Prost. He hasn't done anything about trying to beat Gerhard Berger's fastest lap of 2 minutes, 0.7 seconds. Second, Alain Prost, who's got Boutsen there in third position, 41 seconds behind him. In fourth position, Nelson Piquet, so Honda-powered cars, and there is a change. Nelson Piquet suddenly surges up into the picture, and Boutsen fights back. Brakes lock. Nannini, I'm sorry, well, you can see them all together now. There is Nannini and Piquet, and behind Piquet is Capelli.
Now, will Piquet's Honda power take him back past? Here we see the replay, but more important is what's going on now. Piquet went for the inside to defend the corner, and Nannini certainly gave him a hard time by leaning on him. And Piquet just went in a little bit too quickly, went wide, and chop! There goes Nannini, goes straight across Piquet's bows, which in effect was the right thing to do to keep Piquet's foot off the throttle. And he has managed to stay in front.
Well, you're watching Nelson Piquet with the march behind him of Ivan Capelli, and ahead of them, Alessandro Nannini. So now Capelli is going for it. Capelli going for fifth position, held by Nelson Piquet, the world champion, whose teammate has already retired. Is still leading from Prost. You are watching the battle which is going on between Nelson Piquet, who is in fifth position, and Ivan Capelli, who is in sixth place. But let me very quickly bring you fully into the picture. Senna is well on his way to his seventh Grand Prix win of 1988. There he is, about to lap Eddie Cheever, who is in eighth position. Prost is 24 seconds behind the man you are watching. Prost in the McLaren, as is Senna in second place. Thierry Boutsen, yet again this season in the Benetton Ford, for the fourth time is in third place. And Alessandro Nannini, his teammate, has just magnificently taken Nelson Piquet, who is fifth, that you've just seen, who is followed by Capelli. Now, in seventh place is Derek Warwick, who fleetingly was in sixth position and in the points. Eddie Cheever there is in eighth position and is about to be lapped, as you can see, by Senna. And the retirements as Senna comes up to La Source and goes through inside Cheever and Martin Brundle there. Martin Brundle in the Williams right up with Cheever, or almost so, is in ninth position. Now, there have been some retirements, and quickly, here they are. Michele Alboreto went out a couple of laps ago with a broken engine. Riccardo Patrese has retired, reason unknown. So has Maurizio Gugelmin, so has Ghinzani, and early on in the race, Yannick Dalmas, Andrea De Cesaris and René Arnoux retired. But Alain Prost would appear to have settled again for second place, and that means to say that Ayrton Senna will have 7 wins to Prost's 4 and has virtually guaranteed himself the World Championship.
Yes, very much so, and both McLarens have now eased up, so they've decided to hold position and just ensure a finish. Their race between themselves is over, with Senna pretty emphatically winning it. And as Murray rightly says, now it would require a major quirk of fate for Senna not to become world champion this year. Behind them, Nannini has finally struggled past Nelson Piquet in an enthralling battle, and Capelli is at this moment trying to follow suit. He's right behind Piquet. I think Piquet's probably gone over his fuel limit, and Capelli's just gone past us, still behind Piquet, but virtually tied together.
Yes, and in my list of retirements, my apologies, I failed to mention that Gerhard Berger, the man who started third on the grid and was the man most likely to challenge Prost there and Senna ahead of the Frenchman for the race, has also retired. So out are Arnoux, who came together with De Cesaris, both went into the sand trap, both okay. Yannick Dalmas, engine problem. Ghinzani, engine problem. Gugelmin, we don't know, but suspect engine. Patrese retired at the bus stop. Michele Alboreto, certainly turbo. And Gerhard Berger. So Ferrari have failed again, sadly, the first Grand Prix since the death of their founder, the great Enzo Ferrari. Obviously, everybody who follows the Ferrari team would have hoped for much better than that. Let us hope that the special plans they have for Monza in 2 weeks' time, the Italian Grand Prix, result in greater success for the great Italian team.
And Martin Brundle, who's running in 9th place, right behind Eddie Cheever, is hanging on very bravely, because I'm sure he's in a lot of physical distress. He had this problem with his neck muscles on Friday. He was very surprised at the tremendous grip of the Williams, giving him much higher G-forces than he's been used to driving the Jaguar this season. And I think he made a mistake in not working on his neck to keep it strong, allowing the sports car to relax it. But he's certainly going... Whoops. That's Johansson missing a gear by the look of things. And Nannini is in fact catching teammate Thierry Boutsen quite fast, but I think Boutsen's probably slowed down, eased up to ensure a finish, and I'm quite sure the two Benettons will hold position whatever happens.
Lap 41, the all-conquering Ayrton Senna, and it has been the same story from the beginning of the race. Prost took the lead at the beginning of the race, but was very rapidly passed by Ayrton Senna. There you see the Ligier of René Arnoux parked by the side of the road. No, it's Johansson. Johansson out as well as Arnoux, so that's yet another retirement. There's Stefan walking back, and he's lasted until lap 41, and that will please him, because he is disgusted with the Ligier this year and is believed to be looking around very actively for another drive for 1989, as does half the entry seem to be doing, except Ayrton Senna, of course. There he goes. He is now on his 42nd and last lap but one. Eddie's lapped Eddie Cheever, who is followed by Martin Brundle, and the race order is Senna leading Prost with 1 lap to go at the end of this one. Boutsen is in 3rd position, Nannini 4th, so Benetton are having a marvellous race. They could not have hoped to beat the McLarens. So Boutsen, in effect, will regard himself as winning the Belgian Grand Prix. And out goes Jonathan Palmer. All of a sudden, they are retiring in the closing stages of the race. Lap 42, poor Jonathan Palmer in the 3.5-litre Tyrrell, who was in 14th place, coasting in to retire from the Belgian Grand Prix. As I was saying, Boutsen in 3rd place, Nannini is 4th, Nelson Piquet in the Lotus Honda. Boutsen in 3rd place, Nelson Piquet behind him, and Nannini. So they are on lap 42. Senna, Prost, Boutsen, Nannini, Capelli going well in 5th position, and Piquet down to 6th place. So Piquet only just in the points, and we could yet see Martin Brundle, who is 9th, and has driven an absolutely magnificent Belgian Grand Prix on his return to single-seater racing, and he didn't even know about it until Wednesday evening. He was scheduled to do some promotional appearances this weekend and had to cancel them all, and look at him, he's right up with Eddie Cheever in the background. So there is Senna leading, ahead of Cheever 8th and Brundle 9th. Of course, he has lapped both of them, and now Ayrton Senna is about to start his last lap. He gets the board, which shows him last lap. So can the lapped Martin Brundle there in the 3.5-litre Judd-powered Williams on a last lap charge do anything about catching and passing Eddie Cheever in 8th position? And by the way, the fastest lap was put up by Gerhard Berger before he came in to retire, just a whisker over 2 minutes compared with last year's fastest lap. That of Alain Prost, 1 minute 57.1, and Cheever closing right up to Senna, which will give Boutsen. See, Senna is taking things comparatively easy by his standards. He's on the last lap. And that will give Martin Brundle the opportunity to close up on the arrows. Eddie Cheever has got a power advantage over Martin Brundle, but by the same token, Martin Brundle in the Williams has got a handling advantage. Martin Brundle's neck muscles must be really worrying him now. He was saying that after practice he knew that he'd been out of single-seater racing for a long time. Senna leading. Cheever behind him, 8th and lapped. Brundle behind Cheever, 9th and lapped. Prost is 2nd, Boutsen is 3rd, Nannini is 4th, Capelli is 5th, and Piquet is 6th. But Ayrton Senna now has cleared the highest point of the course. He's down to the 2nd gear rivage corner, down into the valley. This is the new link which connects the 2 parts of the old, marvellous Spa-Francorchamps course. He's pulling away from the arrows and the Williams.
And Derek Warwick now has Piquet in his sights. He is only a couple of seconds behind Nelson Piquet. Well, this is the last chance for Martin Brundle, because as they stay lapped, this will be the checkered flag for both of them.
And the checkered flag for Ayrton Senna. Out go the Union Jacks. And Ayrton Senna gives the victory wave, and Eddie Cheever holds that 8th position. As the marshals go onto the track, you can expect to see Ayrton Senna stop immediately. In fact, go straight into off the course as Cappy goes through, about to be lapped by Alain Prost. And of course, Ayrton Senna now with 7 wins to Prost's 4. There is Alain Prost finishing the Belgian Grand Prix. 30 seconds, half a minute behind Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna now leads the World Championship not only in terms of wins, as Thierry Boutsen there comes home in 3rd place, but in terms of points. 75 points to Ayrton Senna, to Alain Prost 74. Thierry Boutsen gets, and there he is, third position for the fourth time this year. And we will expect now to see Alessandro Nannini come in fourth position, finishing second of the 3.5 litre cars, because Boutsen there is the first of the 3.5 litre cars. And Boutsen is now only 8 points behind Gerhard Berger, who is third in the World Championship. And McLaren have created a new record with 147 points in the Constructors' World Championship. They have beaten their own previous record of 143.5 points, and there are still 5 races to go. The Belgian Grand Prix won very convincingly indeed, the 7th win of the season by Ayrton Senna, with Alain Prost second, Thierry Boutsen third and winning for the 3.5 litre cars, Nannini fourth, Capelli fifth, Piquet in sixth position, Warwick seventh, Brundle ninth. Ayrton Senna now leads the World Championship from Alain Prost with 75 points to 72. Berger in third position, Boutsen fourth, and fifth equal Piquet and Alboreto. McLaren are unbeatable in the Constructors' World Championship after the Belgian Grand Prix.
Et immédiatement, je crois, Bernard Jonzier pour l'épreuve des 500 cm3 du Grand Prix de Tchécoslovaquie. Ici Jacques Deschenaux qui vous commentait ce Grand Prix de Belgique en compagnie de Jean Tinguely de Spa-Francorchamps. À vous le studio, à vous Genève.
Ci ha proposto quindi benissimo in terza e quarta posizione il duo della Benetton con Boutsen e Nannini, eccezionale gara di Nannini, come altrettanto eccezionale quella di Ivan Capelli in quinta posizione. Piquet è arrivato a un punticino con una vettura che dovrebbe rendere punti molto di più, quindi poi dietro seguono gli altri, quindi le Ferrari ancora una volta sfortunate almeno. Io chiuderei, sento la linea dallo studio, vi cediamo subito la linea, vorrei chiudere con un augurio per quelli che a Maranello stanno lavorando per tornare al più presto competitivi, anche per onorare il nome dello scomparso.
Mario, ci senti?
Sì?
Ecco, allora possiamo arrivare anche fino al podio, vedere dunque anche la premiazione del Gran Premio di Spa. Intanto ti chiederei qui da Roma se ci sono ulteriori novità su questo nuovo malanno di Nigel Mansell, questi contrasti con Frank Williams. Che cosa si dice nell'ambiente oggi a Spa delle ultime novità trapelate in queste ore sul caso Mansell? Ricordiamo che Mansell ha già raggiunto l'accordo per la prossima stagione con la Ferrari.
Direi che novità rispetto a quello che avete letto sui giornali di stamattina non ce ne sono, e cioè dopo una sensazione che il danno al fegato da troppe medicine prese per curare l'attacco di varicella fosse una scusa e ci fossero problemi più gravi legati ai precedenti incidenti e alle contusioni alla colonna vertebrale di Mansell, tutto pare ridimensionato e la visita fiscale alla quale si è sottoposto il pilota inglese per mettersi in regola ovviamente con la posizione assicurativa nei confronti della sua squadra, sembra si siano queste visite estese anche appunto alla condizione della spina dorsale del pilota, riscontrandola in perfette condizioni. Naturalmente allora si è pensato che il problema fosse più politico, e cioè un attrito tra Mansell e la squadra che sta per lasciare, e in particolare tra lui e Frank Williams. Questa probabilmente è la giustificazione più valida ed è quella di cui si parla qui. Naturalmente si tratterà di vedere, certo gli ultimi comunicati parlano di un Mansell ancora per un paio di giorni in cura all'ospedale e poi bisognoso di riposo, tant'è vero che la Williams pensa di proporre come pilota per Monza, per il Gran Premio d'Italia, ancora Martin Brundle. Ma andiamo sulle immagini del podio, premiazione dunque per Ayrton Senna da Silva, secondo è il suo grande avversario Alain Prost, che praticamente passerà il testimone in questo momento al brasiliano, con terzo, estremamente soddisfatto ovviamente per questo risultato in casa sua, prima degli aspirati, di Thierry Boutsen, che vedete alzare in questo momento la coppa. Vi ricordo che Ezio Zermiani si è già precipitato si è precipitato nella postazione dove vengono effettuate le interviste, che voi avrete poi agio di mandare in onda successivamente nel domenica sprint e
Welcome back as the champagne flows there. Another win to Ayrton Senna. Alain Prost second. Thierry Boutsen a fine third. Nannini too with a great race for fourth spot. Capelli in fifth and PK in sixth to make up the top six. Now we have Alain Prost. He'd be very disappointed. That championship really slipping away now. It would be a miracle for Ayrton Senna not to go on to win this championship.
Victory then in the Belgian Grand Prix for Ayrton Senna, his 7th of the year. And second, his McLaren teammate Alain Prost. Third in the Benetton, the Belgian Thierry Boutsen, ahead of his teammate Alessandro Nannini. Fifth in the March, Ivan Capelli. In sixth position, Nelson Piquet in the Lotus. And seventh, Derek Warwick. Ninth, Martin Brundle on his return to Grand Prix racing. Senna is now 3 points ahead of Alain Prost in the Drivers' Championship and seemingly on his way to securing it. Berger in third position with Boutsen that much closer. Piquet and Alboreto fifth equal. McLaren have guaranteed themselves the Constructors' World Championship and in the process have already beaten their previous points record. In 2 weeks' time we go to Italy for the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. If anybody can do anything about the McLaren domination, it is Ferrari. And let us hope so, for their sake, and for the sake of their great founder, Enzo Ferrari.